Welcome back to Attic to Basement Estate Cleanouts with the Raccoons. I had 52 clients in 2003 with 22 moves. One interesting client in 2003 moved several times. I was hired by one attorney, and that attorney soon retired and handed over the case to a younger female attorney. The client was born in Cuba, studied at the University of Havana, and moved to the U.S. in 1941. He served in World War II as an OSS agent. He had military honors from France, Venezuela, and Spain, as well as the Purple Heart. After the war, he returned to Cuba to marry and brought his wife to New York City. He became a professor and published a book. He was also an editor at the Spanish version of Life magazine. Eventually, he became a professor at a university in the District of Columbia. And he wore a suit coat every day for the rest of his life. He was a total gentleman. His wife died, and he lived in a condo in Bethesda, Maryland, where he had 1,000 books. When I met him, he had moved into a senior apartment in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and I was asked to empty the condo and send books to 2 of his friends and a university out west he had taught at. While cleaning out his apartment, I found black and white photos of him with Fidel Castro. This was taken before Castro started wearing combat fatigues. I showed the professor the photo, and he told me he went to college with Castro and spent time with him as a friend. But after Fidel became a leftist, my client disassociated himself from Castro. Along with sorting through books, I also had to sell his cars and send the big furniture pieces to auction. I cleaned and packed up 300 dusty music CDs, which went to his new senior apartment. He was living very simply, and the attorney asked me if I would do some shopping for him because his clothing was very worn. I remember buying him a tie and a belt, some pants, toiletries, and I took his glasses to be fixed as the frames were loose. I also bought him a clock and a chest of drawers and hung art on his walls. While he lived there, he was put on a medicine that changed his moods. He made suggestive remarks to the staff. He told me that people could be shot on the street. He would only answer people when they referred to him as Mr., otherwise he ignored them. His attorney was notified and the doctor was told, and once the medicine was changed, he went back to his gentlemanly self. His memory was failing, and I knew he would not like the man he had become on that one medicine. He was moved to an Alzheimer's unit at another location soon after. By the time he died in 2005, I had worked 95 hours with him and his things. My next job has 2 clients. I was called in because 2 people had died in Greenbelt, Maryland. While my helper and I went through the house built in 1964 for the first time with the attorney, we noticed there was a large square of drywall missing from the living room wall above a chair. At the end of the tour, the 1,500 square foot home, the attorney told us a murder-suicide had taken place. The wife had shot the husband, who was terminally ill, while he sat in the chair in the living room. He had retired and was getting a pension and Social Security, and she didn't know how she would make ends meet without his pension after he died. They had lots of musical instruments and friends that came over regularly to play. She also made jewelry and had a whole room in the lower level set up as a studio workshop. An appraiser came in to value the contents, and then the furniture and instruments and liquor went to auction. The auction company would take hard liquor if it was unopened, and it sold for next to nothing, next to retail price every time. The auction company would take hard liquor if it was unopened, and it sold for next to retail prices every time. They also both wore LL Bean clothing almost exclusively. It was only 1 or 3 times that the auction company wanted to take clothing to sell from one of my clients. I had 2 helpers work with me for a total of 27 hours there. As I was cleaning out the home office, I found my doctor's business card. The next time I went into the doctor's office, I told him about working at the couple's home, and he said it was a very sad situation. That's all I can say. They seemed to have such a full life, and it was sad that even with her artistic talent and friends, she didn't think she could financially make it alone, and that murder-suicide was her only option. When you start a clean-out business, one of the things you have to think about is how you will charge. I charged by the hour for the time I worked in the house, usually 5.5 hours a day, Monday through Friday. We did charge extra for Saturdays, and I only charged travel time if I worked in Virginia, as I could get to most houses in Maryland or the District of Columbia in under an hour, unless there was an accident on the roads and we got stuck in traffic. So I would try to listen to the local news radio, and also had them set up on Twitter so that I would get noticed when there was an accident reported. I charged a flat fee for taking items to charity. My Ford Escape held quite a lot. In many days it was so full I couldn't see out the rear mirror or window, but that's what side mirrors are for. I also charged a flat fee for taking items to consignment stores, whether it was for designer or vintage clothing. The money I got for the sold clothing went directly to the client. If we took items to the auction house in our own cars, I charged our hourly fee plus mileage. Most of the time it was more efficient to have a company with a large box truck take the items to auction house, and they would load and unload the truck once we had boxed all the items and marked them with the client's name on each box. We would use the blue painter's tape with the client's name on furniture, and sometimes we'd plastic wrap the higher end furniture, just like movers do with your furniture. Sometimes the auction company would send someone out to pick them up, but usually I called on one of 3 companies I used to take the items to auction. Then that moving company billed the client for their time. Something you run into when clearing out houses are stamps. Postage stamps that are current or came out in the last 10 years or so. I guess a lot of people stop using what they have when the postage goes up. I guess old stamps remain in a drawer while they use the newest stamps on their letters. A couple of 2-cent stamps and a half page of 39-cent stamps can add up. It was common to find a full drawer of all denomination of stamps. Sometimes the attorney would want them, but most of the time I took them, counted them up for their value, and deducted that amount from my invoice for that job. I still have some from that time, and I use them on envelopes still. The last year I was in business in Maryland, I stopped deducting the amount because I realized I had enough stamps to last me till I die. And it's a hassle to try to use the different combination amounts to get the amount needed to mail a letter. If I send out a large package to someone, it may have an 8-inch strip of stamps across the top. People have told me they look forward to getting mail from me to see what stamps are on it. They are useful for paying bills the old-fashioned way, snail mail. And don't worry, if I got a complete sheet of stamps from a house and they were special limited editions, I have saved them. I was forced into stamp collecting in a minor way. Well, that's enough for today. Please watch my other episodes to hear more about my 800 clients and tips on estate cleanouts. Goodbye.